Ugh, man, it is 86 degrees outside. I have to have my window shut for recording purposes because we have some nice gentlemen quotations who like to, at most random times of the day, go around on their Harley Davidsons and absolutely make a lot of noise. So, in order to make this a pleasurable listening experience, so that you do not hear big motor noises combined with probably errant amounts of yelling that's not coming from me, uh we're gonna close those, and we did. So how y'all doing? It's your boy Connor, and as I said last episode, we were doing a two-parter where we are talking about, as it currently stands at the time of recording this, my thoughts on the 4.0 to 4.3 update Honkai Star Rail Plain Arcadia. And in my previous episode, I covered, real quick for a plot synopsis, everything from No Aha at Full Moon, The Unraveled for Daybreak, and So Laugh the Masses, which is 4.0 to 4.2. We talked a bit about Full Wish, her desire to do the big funny to good old fashioned Plain Arcadia, what an Imagine is. Why is it that there are a lot of people that have the flesh of an emanator of abundance inside of them? But most importantly, the implications that this will have on our favorite Stellaron hunter, Blade. And much like 4.3, the Left Below the Living, the update, well, ironically, focuses on Blade. Mortonak's Blade to be specific, who, as we have last talked about, has currently imbibed the flesh of Shuhu inside of his body, and in doing so has sealed the emanator of abundance to forever be inside of him, supercharging his power already to an already crazy degree. So, actually, I do think I want to cover that real quick. So, it is interesting that Blade already has an advanced form of Mara. If you know anything about the Xianzhou Lofu arc, we're not going to get into that, so I'm just assuming you know. But if I get enough requests, I could probably go in and talk a little bit about that. But pretty much, Blade has an issue where he regenerates a lot of health, and he can't really seemingly die, although I stand by the notion of send him into a star, and we'll see if he survives that. But as it currently stands, no. He's got a high regenerative ability, which makes it quite difficult to die. And as it turns out, Shuhu, being the emanator of abundance that he is incapable of being killed off in any sort of permanent stance as it currently is. As how much as there's even a tiny piece of his flesh still remaining, he will find a way to come back. And in 4.3, we addressed that. So something to me that I was really excited about with this update, and which was kind of hinted at throughout the way, is there are two major players that might take out Ahatopia, or Plain Arcadia in general. And that is Asat Brahmad, the Lord Ravager, who is, for lack of a better term, a D20 on a head in his current iteration. We will talk about Asat Brahmad in a minute, but just for now, picture him as being the main big bad that will probably be fought in 4.4. And on top of that, there is the literal body of the Aeon of Veracity, Ouroboros. This big, angry... Okay, so let's get a little context for what is the Aeon of Veracity. So, the Aeon of Veracity, for those who do not know, is a Aeon that has one purpose in life. Eat everything that exists. Just keep devouring it, destroy it, eat it, slurp it, devour it, drink it, whatever you do that has to do in regards to any of that. The interesting thing is that it actually does have ties to the Elation, as the Elation, specifically Aha, stole its ability to taste. So that's the concept of aftertaste, which is like the thing that you see in the simulated universe of Star Rail actually was originally a Veracity concept that was taken as a sort of joke by Elation. And Ouroboros, in its effort to, eat everything, has thrown itself at the galaxy and the greater universe as a whole, which is where the whole the swarm disaster comes in again, where I don't really want to get into a time crunch on it, but pretty much swarm disaster is a major catastrophic event that has overtaken about a quarter of the galaxy, was consumed in the process. There was multiple galaxies, and it culminated when Kalpath did a bonk on Ouroboros, killed them, and then parts of them kind of just scattered around. But there are still effects of their path lying around, particularly the swarm enemies you see in the game, replicating bugs that have the ability. And when Ron May casually decided to make an emanator in the Herta space station. Again, I just want to point this out. Why that was allowed and there was no punishment, I will not know. But then again, the members of the Genius Society have never quite been known for having their issues brought upon them in any way, shape, or form. But it was later revealed down the line that the shadow that was sealed inside of Ashvale's arm is actually a small mouth, or like one of the mouths of Ouroboros, which is how they were able to not only kill the Lord Ravager Zulu, eat the Emanator of Abundance Shuhu, but also devoured the four mech pilots that we end up killing in the previous patch. So I just thought that was interesting. But those are the two main players in the story up until this point. And as it turns out, what we got to do is Asap Pramod is revealed that he wants to use this remnant of Ouroboros to pretty much eat the entirety of Plain Arcadia and probably incite another massive war in which millions would die. So we obviously got to warn Graphia about that. So the main plot of this sort of patch is the Trailblazer is actively going to the center of Ahatopia to try to find Graphia, and in doing so, warn her about the possibility of Asap Pramod showing up and doing some bad stuff. Because, again, she's under the assumption currently that the seal that she put in place of Ouroboros will remain there, but in reality, it's not. It's being undermined. We need to make sure that we go and shore up the defenses. Now, throughout this, Blade comes to a realization that the only way to permanently kill Shuhu, or at least put them in a state of consistent damage, is to actually drop themselves into the center of Ahatopia, into the waiting mouth of Ouroboros, to be consistently devoured 1,000 times and reborn again and again and again as he is eaten inside out. Now, leading up to that point, there is a subplot in which we discover that Himiko has some suspects on her father, Ryusuke. As we meet Ryusuke, who is initially very unsure of if it was his daughter, which kind of planted an idea back in the mind. Now, there were some subtle hints throughout this patch that Ryusuke was not who he claimed to be. And that is where we end up finding out, once we do the Himiko line, that Asap Pramod actually killed her father and then casually took on his role when the first time she actually met him when she was 6. And there's a moment where he says that the only time I ever lied to you was when I said I was your father. And then everything else after that was just absolutely crazy. But then, something that kind of shows up is it was hinted that Himiko stopped the Herald of Death. But if you look, Himiko, at least her younger self at the time of the Bloodstained games 15 years ago, was wheelchair bound. She was incapable of moving out past a certain point. She was suffering from the wasting disease that caused her to have issues with maintaining her constitution. So really, kinda doesn't really look like a great touch until it was revealed that the version of Himiko that we actually see in that version of the game is actually an imaginary version of her that the original one dreamt up or created as the ideal version of herself. So, yeah, she got off the train and now she's throwing hands. Although, it was already revealed, like with the whole Nova, Himiko Nova version that we're getting. Maybe I'll finally have a more use for Sunday, but I just think that that was a hell of a reveal. I mean, I kind of saw it coming afterwards, but I'm just like, damn, Himiko, your father not only wasn't your father, but they actively were doing shit. And the only reason Asap Pramat did it was because it's funny. If that isn't a base ass villain, I don't know what is. That is actually crazy. Kill a little girl's father, become him, and casually be like, yeah, nah, I did it because it was funny. And he's all giddy too. Like when you find out, he's like, man, feels good to get that out of my kick. But I digress. So while that is happening, um, the Trailblazer is sent to this far off kind of resort with Nihilux, who is currently now claimed as property of the IPC for having her debts paid off. And until she creates the latest version of Fluffy and the Blue, she is a corporate asset that has value to them in making this. So, yeah, once again, the issues of capitalism striking at me as I am unable to buy my way out to freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Sam is holding me by gunpoint. Okay, calm down. I'll go back to the script. I'll put the gun down. So we end up at this resort, and we have to investigate where to find Graphia. So you go around, you talk to some people, you end up talking to this Imagine who's actually a frost giant who used to be a frost giant, actually, I should say. And he kind of just helps run the resort. He goes around, does stuff. Maybe he talks occasionally. You know, just the usual stuff. You get into a snowball fight with him, and then it culminates as, hey, guys, Graphia doesn't respond to just anybody. She's in the back. Oh yeah, I want to preface this as well by saying, everybody, like, this is kind of like a random site where Imagine who go to die show up because they want their respective lifespans to be raised. So they pray that Graphia, the person who pretty much is the mother of all Imagine to an extent, use her brush to cause them to live longer. I just thought that was a neat little thing. So we end up going to a area where it's this shrine with two lamps, and we light them and we attempt to find Graphia. And we don't see her initially, but then we see Nihilux, who's, you know, just absolutely being a goofy goober as she is, and is talking over us, and she gets dragged off by the guards. It's a recurring theme throughout this entire story that Graphia is getting dragged out by her guards to draw, and it's really funny. But then, hey, look, Graphia shows up just randomly, no context. She's like, "Oh yeah, you know, I was expecting you. You lit the stuff here. I'll reveal the way for you to go. By the way, to the area if you tell me some stuff." So you're like, "Okay, awesome. Do I gotta show you something?" You're like, "Oh no, but let me see that mask of yours." You give her the mask. She looks at it. She gives it back. She's like, "All right, I will unleash the train for you. If you go to this location, so go to this location." And bada boom, bada bing. There's Blade and Silverwolf. Now, keep in mind, while this is all going on, there are all these stories happening. The Himiko one, the Blade one, vice versa. Silverwolf is not very happy that Blade is going to throw himself casually into the abyss. I mean, I wouldn't blame her either. He's like the only male character in the Stellaron Hunters who cooked, and also at the same time, Blade is my homeboy. He's awesome. I like that man. I wish I got Blade. I got Mortnak's Blade, but I don't have normal Blade, which is funny because, like, it shouldn't matter, but it's goofy. But we end up meeting with them, and Blade pretty much says, "Yeah, I'm gonna 3-point myself into the fire of veracity, and in doing so, I'm going to hold down this issue of having to suffer tremendously with Shahu being inside of me." Now, on the other end of this story, there was actually a third, like, kind of subplot going on, and that is actually Ashvale and friends investigating the tavern because it is revealed at one point Asaprama was actually a laughing fool. And through investigation, they uncover like, hey, uh, you know, there's some stuff over here that we should check out. Now, what's kind of funny is Asat wants to discover the end of the known universe, or at least the end of the trail. And after hearing about, I think he said 20 trillion jokes, he abandoned his original form and he became a navigator for the Express, which in doing so put him on the path of the Trailblazer, in which he, if I remember correctly, interacted with Machiavelli. And then there was all the fun stuff that kind of goes around with that. But that he has instances where he goes through multiple identities. So en route was the first one. That's when he was later fooled. And then investigating further, he adopted a new name, Issei, an individual that was liked and well respected for not only his charisma, but also socializing with Machiavelli and performing stand up, which I thought was pretty funny. But obviously, tragedy strikes, and through a tragedy, Machiavelli falls, and that greatly affects Issei. And then after that, Nanook casually shows up, and come on, his hatred for Aha like continuously grows until eventually, they join Nanook, and he has a thing where he becomes a Lord Ravager, and through becoming a Lord Ravager, he destroys planets as a big joke, doing the whole "aha, I'm a real funny guy." But it's interesting because, again, there he's actively taking different roles throughout all of this until it eventually like culminates with him becoming a Saprama, all to get back at the elation. And from that, we get on the train going back to the original plot, and we learn that there is a weird little contradiction in the plot here. We get picked up by Graphia. Graphia brings us to the funny little place where the veracity person sleeps, and she's like, "Yeah, so how you guys get here?" And you're like, "Oh, well, you want us to show us something, right? You came to me before and you told me." And she looks at you and she goes, "Uh-huh. You want to run that by me again, Chief?" So I went, "Right." And you're like, "What? Well, you looked at my mask and everything, right? That was you, right?" And then it hits you. Wait a minute. That's not me. That's freaking a shot. Hold. Wait a minute. And just like a villain who casually shows up at the least optimal moment, that fedora wearing son of a bitch does the little tilt hat goes milady, and he rolls that die, and then you guys go at it. But what's funny is Graphia initially assists you. She sealed herself away in the canvas, obviously, but then she throws hands with you and the other. Oh my god, I'm like brain farting. she and you throw hands to ensure that a Sot per mod goes down. Now, something that I always find really funny is that these Lord Ravagers are, they're galaxy-wide spanning threats in what they do. They destroy planets casually. And our first instinct is to see this guy who could obviously delete us with not but a finger and go, glow stick weapon that I got from the Path of Elation, go. And you bring it to the max. Like, oh my god, you throw hands, you go nuts, you destroy them. It was something, is what I would say. But no, in reality, what happens is initially earlier, when you gave a Sot disguised as Graphia your mask, he ends up destroying it and absolutely messing it up to a really, really bad degree. So when you're fighting him, there's just a moment where you're about to like land a hit on him, which was well calculated, and then he rolls a die and he's like, "Yeah, nah, we ain't doing that." Now, the other thing that I have to mention, because obviously this 4.3 update would not be normal without it, is Graphia is actually she's got a little bit of a uniqueness to her. You see, Graphia initially was an infant who a Sot found and, kind of doing it like a little funny, decided to infuse her with the power of destruction, rebirthing her as a Void Ranger. And then he decided to teach her how to paint using the power of veracity to carry out the antimatter legion's will. Now, you see, this is a bit of an important thing to note because as we are fighting him, he snaps his fingers and goes, Graphia, you auto balance. You are no longer on the red team, you are on the blue team. Now you throw hands with everyone else. And we end up fighting this corrupted version of her. I know we're not supposed to kill her, but really I could care less. I just really wanted to do big damage. Now, keep in mind, while this is going on, like before, Blade jumps into the water to be consumed by voracity. He tears open his chest, he rips out the heart of abundance in the form of Shuhu, and like 2 seconds later, Shuhu gets into his head, and he's like, "Aha, I'm winning." I see what I did there. You cannot stop me. I got this, gamer. And then Blade's like, "Well, you see, the thing about the veracity is it's going to keep you in check as much as it's going to keep, my body in check. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to kill myself 1,000 times tempering this body using veracity as the tempering agent and you as kind of like veracity as the base. And I'm going to use you tempering. Yeah, look, just imagine the funny instance in which Blade fully combines the power of veracity with the regenerative abilities of abundance to become Mortonak's Blade. And there's like this really epic sequence where he rips the heart back into his chest, and the veracity consumes him, and he awakens once more to throw hands. And it's all indicative in the gameplay. He enters a state where the blade enters his chest, and then from that, he unlocks the ability to use Shuhu's powers to its fullest. And while this is happening, his incredible powers of regeneration are consistently being ebbed away by the power of veracity. Because Shuhu cannot die fully, he is unable to be consumed fully as well. So not only does he have literally almost all of the powers and benefits of an emanator, but without needing to be on a path, but he's back and he's more crazy. Like, I remember the reveal trailer for Morton X Blade. There's a sequence where he's taking a bath, and that caused everyone in the damn chat to just lose their mind. It was amazing. And as if that wasn't funny enough, there is a sequence where, the fan service with the bandages all over him was done doubly so. So I just thought that was funny. But throughout this entire sequence, right? Not only do we get more development for Blade, who throughout this entire moment has a thing where he wants to die, he's impatient, he has no interest in living, and through means of the Mara is fully unable to. But as he sort of takes in Shuhu, there's this whole sort of thing where as he is sinking into the abyss before you fight, he has a flashback to all of the blades he forged, to the star-eating glaive for Jing Yuan, to the first ever blade that he created, even going as far as, well, he didn't make it. There was a moment where he saw Kafka's blade and all the fun stuff that comes with. And it's just a bunch of these, like, little interactions before he meets his master again. And then, at the crux of all of it, there's this epic blacksmith moment where he intakes the ingestion of the material of Shuhu and he becomes Mortonak's blade. Now, that pretty much covers the basis of all of that. So I'd like to kind of take a minute and talk just a tiny bit about all the upcoming content. So I am unaware as to its current release date, but I believe it is going to be maybe next year or the year after. I'm unsure. But there is a sequence of rumors that we are getting a new version of Kafka in the 5.0 update, in where she has a new SP form that takes on the role of I want to say like a mass debuffer, but she has a thing where she uses Spirit Whisper, which I've always been very curious to see how they would make that work. Because, the whole thing about Spirit Whisper is it's a mental manipulation tool that allows her to, pretty much be like, you, stop existing. I would like it if you stopped existing, period. No more of that. But no, that that does not seem to be the case as of right now. I don't know where I'm going with this. I just thought that was neat. I'm totally not padding out for 30 minutes. Oh yeah, right. Crap. I now that I talked about that, I forgot to go about into what I was talking about. So this week, at least 2 hours ago, before I recorded this session, I was fighting Fatalis with my friend, and let me tell you something. Fatalis, Fatty is hard, and this is in Monster Hunter World, mind you. Oh my god, life pain cannot be accurately described on how badly this damn bastard just cannot die. I mean, it's already, like, kind of crazy enough when you're throwing hands with a monster that, it's nothing really overtly special with his move kit. He just does a lot of fire and physical damage. He slams into you and he absolutely destroys you. But when you combine that with the AoE attacks and then needing to get on that, and then obviously the mass amount of health that he has, it gets pretty crazy. Now, we were like kind of effectively getting to a point where we were able to remove parts of his health bar to an extent where I was pretty comfortable in knocking him down, but it culminated to a point where he was just kicking our ass. But it's only like my second go on him, so pretty crazy lad. Now, closing note before we call it for today. This is the part 2 of my examination of the Plain Arcadia story so far, but I think I'd like to do a part 3 when Asap Pramod's 4.4 update comes out. I mean, if you've seen the leaks, you've seen the leaks, but his boss fight is getting me pretty excited. Not gonna lie. I want to throw hands with the cosmic dice of death. Alright, well, as per usual, this is Connor Talks Games. I hope that you will have had a wonderful time hearing me yap about the stupid shit that I like to get into. And of course, make sure that you subscribe to the Connor Talks Games YouTube channel. Check out our other socials and most importantly, our website, Project Cyclone Productions, as we are always trying to make new projects. Now, I hope that you have all thoroughly enjoyed this episode, and I wish to see you all next week when I talk about something. Bye-bye.